Latest episode of Fantasy Island, a group of friends seek out what happened to the fourth member of their group back in the 80s. And as this happens, Ruby is introduced to a loophole to get her off the island and not feel so trapped. So the guests of this episode, they have a shared fantasy of finding out what happened to the fourth member of the group named Rosemary, who disappeared in the 1980s. And the answer is Rosemary was dating some guy named Bill in Miami. He was a con artist and she participated in some of his cons. She decided to leave him in that life and go to Minnesota, but he tracked her down, and with that, she decided to disappear. Judy, Nora, and Marcia did not know this until the fantasy provided this information. And thanks to the fantasy, the timeline gets altered where they get to have their friend back in line as she is now married, has kids, and grandkids. But of course, the fantasy isn't the only thing the island focuses on, but also each individual person. And through presenting the Rosemary that they knew and loved, who was someone who always was good with listening and giving advice, each one gets some type of validation or push that they have long needed. In terms of Judy, she is given the push and permission to not only mourn her husband who died, but get angry at him for dying and the feelings that he left behind. When it comes to Nora, she is given permission to feel bored with her husband's retirement and him just wanting to play golf while she feels unstimulated. And she's also given permission to enjoy this mystery and the fact that it makes her feel alive again. It makes her feel interested in something. And lastly, Marcia is given permission to not feel guilty about divorcing her husband who no longer loved her, and she's also given permission to no longer use whatever guilt she may have about the divorce as a reason to coddle her children, who are, I'm not even sure if they mention their age, but it becomes very clear that between her children living with them, her children living with her, and maybe getting to live the glamorous life, it has gone on too long, and thanks to Rosemary, she is finally ready to push them out the nest and live her life. The second topic deals with Ruby just feeling trapped on the island. But with knowing that Helene can come and go as she pleases from the island to the mainland, Ruby finds herself wondering what can she do with herself with, being in the island paradise, but considering the paradise doesn't have much besides guests and her co-workers, it can sometimes be a lonely experience. And while Isla is around sometimes, that's not enough. So in order to aid her, Elena allows or else introduces her to the idea of going into people's fantasies as a means of escaping the trappings of the island. And with that, Ruby gets to have the experiences that she didn't get to have in her past life. Whether it is seeing Prince perform live or just hang out with other people who are part of the gay community. And you can tell while this is perhaps not the most realistic way to handle what she's going through, at the same time, she is more than willing to make a way out of what is available to her in order to find some semblance of joy. So the last topic is just dealing with Elena Javier's relationship, especially as Helene becomes a bigger role in his life. For right now, it's very much clear that Elena has become very used to helping other people when it comes to what's going on in their lives, whether it's as a guest or even as a boss of many people. But what she's not really doing is taking care of her own fantasies and needs, and not in a whole sexual or romantic way, but you can tell that she's starting to get the sense of being less so alone and more kind of lonely as she gives Ruby a way to explore all the stuff that she never got to do, and Javier is exploring a relationship with his daughter. So with that in mind, Segundo pushes her to be more involved, maybe be a bit more open about these negative feelings, and Elena looks at this all as she can't have a separate relationship with Javier and not have one with Helene. So it seems in the future, Elena is going to start interacting and building a relationship with Helene, so that rather than them trading off Javier and have individual time with him, maybe not as a family, but at least as a group, they can all be together and nobody has to feel like they're getting left out in the cold. The first highlight for us is just Ruby getting to be around her people. For thus far, Ruby's journey to queerness has been limited by what the island is willing to give her, be it Isla or Gina, but now with Elena offering her the chance to go into people's fantasies, it means that even if she has to find a community within the fantasy, Ruby can now have the chance to embrace who she is amongst a diverse group of different queer people and make it so that, as we've seen with Isla, she isn't reliant on this one person in order to have this experience or get to truly live this life that she has been gifted. She now can have options. The next highlight for us is just Elena slowly but surely emotionally evolving. As was made clear early on in this series, at least this remake of the series, or continuation, however you want to put it, Elena has long been used to being alone. She's been comfortable with the idea, she's been fine with it. But thanks to Segundo, thanks to Javier, thanks to Ruby, the feeling of being alone has increased as she has started to once again need social interaction and social relationships. So when it comes to Helene and wanting to take the initiative to open up to her rather than have yet another relationship which was kind of forced on her by the island, this should be something very interesting. Especially since Helene just lost her mom, and while I'm not saying Elena's going to try to walk into that role, it could potentially trigger Elena talking about her own family besides her uncle, and maybe even that relative that went missing or that was supposed to take over for the island but wasn't ready. But either way, this seems like a good opportunity for some character development going forward. Overall, when it comes to this episode, admittedly, the guest star story may not have been the same kind of highlight as it was for other episodes, but at the very least, the slow and steady journey of the series leads do more than enough to keep things entertaining.